A 14-year-old Emmett Till traveled from Chicago to Mississippi to visit family. What should have been a simple trip ended in tragedy after he was accused of whistling at a white woman. Days later, Emmett was kidnapped, brutally murdered, and left in the Tallahatchie River. His mother, Mamie Till Mobley, made the courageous decision to hold an open casket funeral, forcing the world to confront the brutal reality of racism. The killers, Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam, were acquitted by an all-white jury but later admitted to the crime. Emmett's murder shocked America and helped spark the civil rights movement, reminding us of the deadly cost of hate and the power of one voice to demand change. In this episode of Marv's Story, we revisit Emmett's story, the trial, and the powerful lesson it leaves behind. Subscribe to the Crime Vault for more true crime stories, unsolved mysteries, and cases that still teach lessons today. In the summer of 1955, a 14-year-old black teenager named Emmett Till left his hometown of Chicago to spend time with family in Money, Mississippi. Emmett was like many kids his age, playful, funny, and curious about life. His mother, Mamie Till Mobley, raised him on her own, and she worked hard to keep him safe and give him a bright future. But Mississippi in 1955 was a very different world from Chicago. Racism was everywhere in the South, and segregation was the law of the land. For a young black boy, even the smallest action could be twisted into an excuse for violence. On August 24, Emmett went with his cousins to a small grocery store owned by a white couple, Roy and Carolyn Bryant. Accounts of what happened inside the store vary. Some said Emmett whistled at Carolyn, others said he made a playful remark, and some believe he did nothing at all. What we do know is this: Carolyn Bryant claimed that Emmett made advances toward her. At that time in Mississippi, such an accusation from a white woman against a black boy could mean deadly consequences. Just a few nights later, around 2:30 in the morning, Roy Bryant and his half-brother J.W. Milam showed up at the home of Emmett's great uncle. Armed with guns, they demanded Emmett. Terrified family members begged them to let him be, but the men forced Emmett into their truck and drove away. That was the last time his family saw him alive. For hours, Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam tortured Emmett. They beat him beyond recognition, shot him in the head, and then tied a heavy cotton gin fan around his neck with barbed wire. They dumped his body into the Tallahatchie River. 3 days later, Emmett's bloated, disfigured body was pulled from the water. His face was so damaged that it was almost impossible to recognize him. The only thing that identified him was a ring on his finger, a ring his mother had given him. When Mamie Till received the devastating news, she faced a choice. She could quietly bury her son, or she could show the world the horror of what had been done to him. She chose courage. Mamie held an open casket funeral in Chicago and said, "Let the world see what they did to my boy." Tens of thousands of people came to view Emmett's body. Photographs of his mutilated face were published in magazines and newspapers across the country. Those images forced Americans, many for the first time, to confront the brutal reality of racism in the South. Bryant and J.W. Milam were arrested and put on trial for Emmett's murder, but the trial was a mockery of justice. The courtroom was segregated. Black witnesses risked their lives just by testifying. After only 67 minutes of deliberation, an all-white jury found both men not guilty. One juror even joked, "It wouldn't have taken that long if we hadn't stopped to drink soda." The injustice didn't end there. Just a few months later, Bryant and Milam gave an interview to Look magazine. Protected by double jeopardy laws, they openly admitted that they killed Emmett. They even described in detail how they did it, and they never spent a single day in prison for the crime. As horrifying as this story is, it became a turning point in American history. The death of Emmett Till lit a fire under the civil rights movement. Just a few months later in Montgomery, Alabama, Rosa Parks refused to give up her bus seat. When asked why she took that stand, she said she thought of young Emmett Till. Emmett's story gave energy and urgency to the fight for justice, equality, and civil rights across America. His mother's bravery in showing the truth to the world ensured that Emmett's death was not in vain. The lesson: the murder of Emmett Till is one of the darkest chapters in American history, but it holds lessons we cannot afford to forget. It teaches us the deadly cost of racism and hate. It shows how injustice thrives when people stay silent. And it reminds us of the power of one voice, Mamie Till's voice, to change the course of history. Emmett's story is heartbreaking, but his memory helped move a nation closer to change. And even today, it calls on us to stand against injustice, to protect the vulnerable, and to never forget that every life matters. And that is why the story of Emmett Till remains one of the most important and unforgettable cases inside Marv's story. Please comment your thoughts on this story and don't forget to subscribe.